Life and arrests inside CECOT prison. The Centro de Confinamiento del Terrorismo, widely known as CECOT, is one of the most controversial and closely watched prisons in the world today. Built in El Salvador and inaugurated in 2023, CECOT was designed as a central pillar in the Salvadoran government's aggressive campaign against organized crime, particularly violent street gangs that had dominated large parts of the country for decades. To understand what CECOT is and why people are sent there, it is necessary to look beyond the prison walls and examine the historical, social, and political conditions that led to its creation, as well as the legal framework under which detainees are arrested and confined. For many years, El Salvador was regarded as one of the most dangerous countries outside of an active war zone. Criminal organizations such as MS-13 and Barrio 18 exerted territorial control over entire neighborhoods, enforced their own rules, extorted businesses, recruited children, and carried out murders with near impunity. Ordinary citizens lived under constant fear, and the state struggled to assert authority. Previous governments attempted negotiations, police reforms, and social programs, but these efforts produced limited and often temporary results. Violence surged repeatedly, and public trust in institutions eroded as crime appeared unstoppable. Against this backdrop, the government declared a nationwide state of exception in March 2022 after a sharp spike in gang-related killings. This emergency measure suspended certain constitutional rights, including aspects of due process, freedom of assembly, and privacy of communications. Under the state of exception, security forces were granted expanded powers to arrest suspects without warrants and to detain them for extended periods before formal charges. It was within this legal environment that the decision to construct CECOT took shape. The prison was envisioned not simply as a detention facility, but as a symbol of the state's determination to dismantle organized crime permanently. CECOT is located in a remote area far from major population centers and was purpose-built to hold an unprecedented number of inmates. Designed to house tens of thousands of prisoners, it is among the largest prisons in the Americas. The facility is heavily fortified, with multiple layers of security, surveillance systems, and armed guards. Inmates are held under strict conditions. They are confined to cells for most of the day, denied contact with the outside world, and reportedly allowed minimal recreation. The prison operates on the principle of total isolation, aimed at preventing communication between gang members both inside and outside the facility. People sent to CECOT are not ordinary offenders convicted of minor crimes. The prison is reserved primarily for individuals accused or convicted of terrorism-related offenses, which in the Salvadoran legal context largely refers to gang activity. Under revised laws, membership in a gang, collaboration with gang structures, financing criminal groups, or participating in acts that support gang operations can be classified as terrorism. As a result, individuals can be arrested not only for direct acts of violence, but also for alleged association, logistical support, or even suspected involvement based on intelligence assessments. The arrest process leading to confinement in CECOT often begins with large-scale police and military operations in gang-controlled areas. Security forces conduct sweeps, setting up checkpoints, searching homes, and detaining suspects. In many cases, arrests are made based on tattoos, clothing, prior police records, anonymous tips, or suspected ties to known gang members. Those detained are transferred to holding facilities and later assigned to prisons based on their perceived level of danger and affiliation. High-risk detainees, particularly those identified as gang leaders or active operatives, are sent to CECOT. Critics argue that this process blurs the line between suspicion and proof, raising serious concerns about wrongful detention. Human rights organizations have documented cases in which individuals with no gang affiliation were arrested and imprisoned, sometimes without timely access to legal counsel or clear evidence presented against them. Families of detainees have reported uncertainty about the whereabouts and conditions of their relatives, as information about inmates in CECOT is tightly controlled. Supporters of the government, however, argue that extraordinary circumstances require extraordinary measures, and that dramatic reduction in violent crime justifies the approach. Life inside CECOT is intentionally austere. Inmates reportedly sleep on metal bunks without mattresses, eat basic meals, and are denied personal possessions. There are no educational programs, work opportunities, or recreational activities in the traditional sense. The goal is not rehabilitation, but incapacitation. Authorities have stated openly that those sent to CECOT are not expected to return to society anytime soon, if ever. The prison functions as a place of permanent containment, designed to sever gang networks and eliminate their ability to reorganize. The rationale behind sending people to CECOT is rooted in the belief that gangs function as highly disciplined, hierarchical organizations that thrive on communication and control. By isolating members completely and housing them en masse under constant surveillance, the state aims to dismantle leadership structures and disrupt coordination. In this view, traditional prisons had failed because they allowed gangs to operate from behind bars, issuing orders, extorting communities, and recruiting new members. CECOT represents a radical departure from that model. At the same time, the prison has become a powerful political symbol. Images released by the government showing rows of tattooed inmates kneeling or being escorted en masse have circulated widely on social media and international news outlets. To supporters, these images represent justice, order, and the restoration of state authority. To critics, they evoke fear of authoritarianism, collective punishment, and the erosion of civil liberties. The debate over CECOT is therefore not only about criminal justice, but about the nature of democracy, security, and human rights in modern societies. International reactions to CECOT have been mixed. Some governments and security experts have expressed interest in El Salvador's approach, particularly in regions struggling with organized crime. Others, including human rights bodies and legal scholars, have warned that mass incarceration without robust due process sets a dangerous precedent. They argue that while crime rates may fall in the short term, the long-term consequences of arbitrary detention, overcrowding, and lack of rehabilitation could undermine social stability and fuel future conflict. For those who end up in CECOT, the reasons are deeply tied to the broader strategy of the state. Individuals are sent there because they are deemed part of a collective threat rather than solely because of individual criminal acts. The prison reflects a shift from a justice system centered on individual guilt and rehabilitation to one focused on neutralizing perceived enemies of public order. Whether this approach will lead to lasting peace or sow the seeds of future unrest remains an open question. In the end, CECOT stands as a stark example of how societies respond when fear, frustration, and a demand for security reach a breaking point. It embodies both the hope of a population desperate for safety and the risks inherent in concentrating immense power in the hands of the state. The people held within its walls are there because the government has chosen containment over compromise and deterrence over dialogue. As the world watches El Salvador's experiment unfold, CECOT will continue to provoke intense debate about justice, security, and the limits of state authority in the fight against crime.